mom, business owner, goal setter, and most importantly, goal accomplisher. Many of her goals, like becoming debt-free, becoming an author and professional speaker, and yes, even her ongoing quest to meet Elton John, often seem too much and too big to go after. What Melissa found through her pursuit of these goals was that she had the power all along to accomplish these things. She just had to find the people to help her with the skill sets she did not have, and yes, even with some encouragement along the way. In this speech, which she is preparing to give at a conference in August, Melissa will inspire, motivate, and encourage us to take action in our own goals because we have the power. The title of the speech is You Have the Power. The time is 15 to 20 minutes. Melissa.
It's always nice to come get my workout first thing in the morning. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I don't think we have any guests here this morning, but Vance, thank you for that introduction. You have the power. What goal or goals or dreams do you want to accomplish? When you woke up this morning, maybe your first thought was, I just need to get through the day today, and then I can worry about tomorrow. Maybe your thought was, I've got some things I want to accomplish before the end of the week, before the end of the month. Maybe your thought was, I don't have any goals, but I'll figure it out as I go along. Whatever the case may be, you have the power to accomplish anything that you set your mind to do, any idea that you have. I think that it's a great testimony to our legacy if we are led or called or otherwise inspired to have a goal or a dream and actually go after it. Because one thing I've learned is that when you go after a goal and people see you doing that, you inspire other people to do exactly the same thing or maybe a different thing. All of the things that Vance mentioned in my introduction were things that, some of them were things I didn't really think of, it just sort of happened because of life. But other things like meeting Elton John, I've been pursuing that goal for over 20 years. And there are a lot of people in my life that have told me it's never going to happen, you might as well just give it up. But you know what? I'm a whole lot closer to that goal today than I was 20 years ago. And all it took was me believing in the fact that I could do it, but also meeting people along the way that helped me. And oftentimes it was not the first person I met, it was the person who knew that person or the person who knew that person. And there was like if you picture a tree with the roots at the bottom and it just kept growing and growing and growing. So like my tree of connections has grown over the years. And I just keep meeting people and they know people and so on and so forth. None of that happens though if I don't share my dreams and my goals with other people, if I don't talk about it. There's a lot of talk about, you put things out there in the universe and all that sort of thing, and all of that is very true. It might sound a little hokey, but it is very true. If you don't put it out there, then you're not going to attract the people to help you with those things. An example of that is last year when I wrote and published my first book. There were many times where I would come home from a concert and I would share a story and people would say, "That's an awesome story. You should write a book." And my immediate response was, "I am not an author. I have no business writing a book." And then I would go to another concert and I would share a story and somebody would say, "That's a great story. You should write a book." And my immediate response was, "I'm not an author. I have no business writing a book." Last year I spoke at a conference, and one of the things that we were requested to do was leave the audience with some actionable steps. So all of the speakers were instructed to give a speech, and at the end of the speech we had to inspire or motivate the audience in some way. So my first thought was, I'll tell a concert story because that was an easy thing for me to do. The hard part was coming up with the action steps or the motivation or inspiration at the end of the speech. And it turned out, in talking with other people who are professional speakers, there's a lot of life lessons that I've learned in my pursuit to meet Elton John, my pursuit to be debt-free, of course, being married, having kids, all of those things. And so when I was writing the speech and preparing to give the speech, at the end of the speech, I told the audience 3 things that I learned from this particular story that I shared. And at the end of the speech, the person who was in charge of booking all the speakers came up to me and she said, "That was one of the best speeches I've ever heard, and I love the life lessons at the end of it. You should write a book." For crying out loud, why all these people keep telling me I should write a book, I should write a book, I should write a book? And my immediate response was, I'm not an author, I'm not going to write a book. But it turns out that at that conference, there was another person there who was an author. And he's local here to Wilmington. His name is Matt Ham. And we found out, we lived close to each other. We had coffee one afternoon, and I was talking with him about these stories and all that. And he said something to me about writing the book. And I said, "Well, I can't write a book. I'm not an author." And I will never forget, he said to me, "If you feel like you need to write a book, then you need to write a book. You are not an author until after you write and publish your book." And it was like this light bulb went off in my head. And I went, "Oh, yeah." And he said, "Yeah, well, like, you're not a wife until you get married. You're not a mom until you have kids. You're not an author until you write and publish the book." So I talked to him some more about the whole process, and I went home, and within 18 months, I wrote and published my first book. I'd like to read, not the story from the speech because of time, but this is a little bit shorter. I'd like to read one of the chapters from that book to you. The title of the chapter is called Crowd Control. My 14th Elton John concert took place in Charlotte, North Carolina in March of 2007. My seat was on the floor, but several rows back from the stage on Elton's side. It doesn't matter how many concerts I go to, I still have that same level of excitement as I did with the very first one. Maybe I don't cry anymore when the opening notes begin, but I sure do get misty-eyed. I love everything about the concert experience, and I show it. I sing and dance and always have a great time. I've developed the consistent habit of bringing my license plate, an old one, not the current one on my car, to the concerts. If I get up to the stage for an autograph, that's what I hand Elton for his signature. During this particular concert, I often held my plate above my head, trying to see if I could get Elton's attention from my seat in the 10th row. I had no idea if he could see it, but I did notice that several people around me saw it every time I held it up. When the time came for fans to approach the edge of the stage, I decided to take a chance and see if I could get past the usher. I wasn't a few steps from my row when the usher blocked my path, and I pleaded my case. "See here, Elton has autographed it before. I just want to run up to the stage, grab an autograph, and I'll be right back," I said. The usher shook her head and shifted position so I could not get past her. I started to ask again, and I heard the crowd around me chanting, "Let her go! Let her go!" The crowd around me, the same crowd that had seen me holding my plate up during the concert, was helping me plead my case. I looked at the usher and asked, "Please? I promise I will come straight back here." She hesitated for a moment, and as the chants of the crowd grew louder, nodded in agreement with that crowd. I took off for the stage and arrived with just enough time to get my plate to Elton from the edge of the stage. Remaining true to my word, I returned to my seat, holding the plate up high, and pointed to the space where he had signed it. As I approached my row, the same crowd who pleaded with me began to clap and cheer. Several people around me congratulated me, and as I looked back to the usher to tell her thank you, she just looked at me and smiled. I will never forget her kindness in that moment. That is one of my favorite stories to share, but you would not have heard that story today. You maybe would never have heard that story unless you just asked me to share a concert story, unless I had written my book. What I found at that conference were the people there to help me make this a reality. when I met Scott and I met Anna and I knew that they were a graphic designer and I knew that Anna was an editor, but when I first met them and they told me what they did, I kind of didn't file that away, because at that time I wasn't planning on writing a book, so I didn't think I needed them. But when it came time to write the book, the people were already in my life that I needed to help get the words from a Word document into this format and into this and get the book published and all that, because there's a lot of processes that are involved in publishing a book. The important part of that is that if you have a goal, if you have a dream, the people are already in your life. I am a firm believer in that, because I've seen it happen time and time again. So it doesn't matter what your goal is, what your dream is, and you think, oh, I can't do that because I don't know anybody who's done that. You do. And if you don't personally know them, somebody who you know knows somebody. Or somebody that you know knows somebody who knows somebody. The important thing is to talk about it and to tell people about it, so that the people who are out there to help you can come into your life and help you do that. In The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's goal was to get home. That's the whole point of the movie, is for Dorothy to get home. Along her journey down the yellow brick road, she meets all the people that she needs. Mostly it's to give her the encouragement, because she didn't really believe that she could get home, that she had the power to get home. So throughout the whole course of the movie, she meets the lion, she meets the Tin Man, she meets the, what's the third person? Scarecrow, thank you very much. And she meets all these people along the way. And every time she met somebody, what did she say? I'm just trying to get home. I'm just trying to go see the wizard, because she felt like if she went to see the wizard would have all the information that she needed in order for her to get home. At the end of the movie, she and Glenda, the Good Witch, are having a conversation, and they're kind of reminiscing about it. And Glenda says to her, "You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself." And that's a powerful lesson to learn. That when you have an idea, when you have a goal, to have that mindset for yourself that you have the power. You have the power to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. You have to go find the people along the way to help you. And the only way to do that is to tell people what your goal is, what your dream is, what you're working on, how far along are you? Because you know it's a whole lot easier, because people are funny sometimes, but it's a whole lot easier for people to reach out and help you and go above and beyond when they know how far or how close you are to attaining that goal. So for example, when we were getting out of debt, the closer I got to getting out of debt, and the more I told people that, oh, we only have $10,000 left, or we only have $5,000 left. It's amazing the people that came out of the woodwork to cheer me on to get out of debt that weren't there when we had $43,000 of debt to pay off. But the closer we got to the goal, the more people came out. They were like, go, go, go. It's almost like, oh, you have $43,000 to pay off? Okay, well, I'll wait to cheer you on until I see how much effort you're making, towards that goal. It's the same goal, the same thing with being married and having kids. You find the people in your life that are going through that same situation or a similar situation. In my ongoing quest to meet Elton John, it's interesting when I meet different people and they're like, oh, you want to meet Elton John? That's cute. And then I go, oh yeah, I've been to 38 concerts. Oh, really? Now they're interested, right? Because what's the automatic thing? A lot of times when you tell other people your goals and your dreams, they go, oh, that's cool. That's great. And it's kind of like, I'm going to encourage you, but I don't really believe it's going to happen, right? But when you tell people, but look at the progress I've made. I've been to 38 concerts. I've sat at his piano. I've met every member of the band except for Elton. Every time I say something, they're like, oh, now I'm more interested. Now I'm more interested. Now I'm more interested. Because they're like, oh, you're like that close? Yeah, let me see if I can find somebody who can help you make that happen. But over 20 years ago, when I told people that I wanted to meet Elton John, it was like, yeah, you're cute, that's great. How are you gonna do that? You know, and it seemed an impossible dream at the time because we have no connections to the music industry. We don't know anybody, you know, who could. It's not like I have a friend of a friend who's friends with Elton John. It could be like, hey, Melissa went to a concert, now she wants to meet you. You know, it hasn't worked like that. But it's been the constant forward progress. And the always telling people, always sharing with people. And yeah, even now, you know, I have people that are like, oh, that's great, you're that close, but it's still never going to happen. And I just say, you know what, it's whatever. You go figure out your own goals and dreams because I'm focused on mine. But all of these things, I had the power all along. I just had to learn it for myself. And the way I learned it for myself was by finding the people in my life, paying attention, asking for help, sharing my story, making sure that people knew exactly what I wanted, how I thought I would get there, and then in using a term we use in business, which is called networking the networks. So the people that are in my immediate circle, they might not know how to help me, but they probably know someone who can help me. We have the power, we have to learn it for ourselves, and we do that by finding the people in our life to help us along the way.